Hello and welcome to Audionaut Deep Space Network, episode 139. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion. Today we're talking about a couple of pieces of gear, one being free and one being basically the polar opposite of free. The one's in a DAW, one is a piece of gear. My name is Sunwarper, and with me today is who do we want to start with? Oh, I'm tempted to go. Let's go with Eonlake. What's up, Eonlake?
What's up? The same old thing from me. I'm still doing me.
Define that. There's a few different versions of me.
That's been the thrust of it. Exactly. Define that. Who are you? What is it you're trying to do here? I've called all stop to recording activities. I've pulled the shutters down, said nope, nothing. I'm going to crawl into a metaphorical chrysalis, smacking my pop shield out of the way.
I was expecting Christmas, but
and
you went
I'm
a different route.
Come out something different. That's the idea. I don't know when exactly. So I'm just messing around. I started playing drums again because it's therapeutic, whether things are going well, not well, in between. Playing drums is always good. And just doing sound design stuff and just messing around and not worrying about it because I'm getting sick and tired of writing music I don't like.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have a think about it, and I'm going to try and come back and do something different. But I'm not going to rush myself. I'm going to try and enjoy music a bit for a while and see what happens. But at the same time, I've also remembered all the good advice I've got on this podcast about you being the instrument or you being the producer, whatever. If you don't look after yourself, then nothing good's going to come out. So I'm going to give that a go as well. I'm going to look after myself.
Well, Mike is giving some good PR speak. Sounds like Eonlake is engaged in some R&D. There you go. Eonlake Research and Development.
Yeah,
research and development. Where is this notion coming from? Is it this idea of, like you say, you're just not particularly appreciating or enjoying the things that you're making, and therefore it's causing you to question a lot of how and why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
I should have put it like Mike did. I could have saved you 5 minutes, but there you go. Yeah, it's just I feel the need to do something different, to question things a bit.
I get that. That makes sense.
That's good, though. It's good to work out of our comfort zones. And I must say, Eonlake, it's great to see you. Also with me today, though, is my Audionaut co-pilot, Curtis. What's going on?
It's good, mate. In a similar vein, in a different way, I'm doing things totally differently. I haven't really been here much this week. The SP is over there, plugged in. I haven't touched it in a week. I've been teching in the real world for the last 6 days or so, and it's been boring.
Teching or Tekken, like the fighter game?
Bit of both when it comes to some of the angry people that get around.
All right.
People don't like their compression a certain way. They don't like the tone. Then it can get a bit fighty. No, I jest. No, it's concert season is in full swing. And it's been great because you've got a blank stage, and within the space of 2 weeks, you can get everything from flamenco guitar to a recital of Beethoven's Fifth to some. We've got electronic music coming in. We've got kids performing on the push and using overdubs for the first time ever. That's happening.
Anybody with the move, or are you? Is it because you teach the push that they have pushes? Like school pushes?
We've got the pushes in the school. That's cool. And so they're all on it, and we're like, cool. Obviously they're hormonal teenagers, and they've got all the confidence, but then they've got all the anxiety, and it comes together in the most beautiful ways, and it's just wonderful to watch them. Some of them like their first beats, right? And then they're coming in and they're just performing it and sequencing it on the push, and their eyes light up when they push a button, and then boom, things happen. Yes, getting them hooked.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what you want to see, like the joy of music.
Right, exactly. It makes it all worthwhile. So so it's all been about the community this week. What about yourself, brother? Where you been going? I haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, I know. I've been busy teaching. I've gotten a lot of teaching gigs lately, so a lot of guitar. I've been having to relearn music notation and sight reading. I hate it. Like it's fine. I'm picking it back up, but I hate it. I just don't like it. I stare at it and I'm like, ugh. But it's fine. Like it's okay. I think it's important to learn at a start point, and depends on your like what you're looking to do with instruments and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like I don't know. I don't even like just hampering to me. Like I don't like sheet music and stuff, but it serves its purpose. But I've been doing a lot of that, and then just a lot of filming and live streaming. So been having a lot of fun. I've sampled some vinyl, and that was the last live stream. And then I think this live stream, I'm going to take the song I flipped of yours, Curtis, that song I made, and show how I'm going to finish it by stem splitting the jam I make and then mixing. Because there's parts where like I need to change the drums and the stem split will just handle that. So that'll be fun.
Solid. It's like the infinite remix, right? So you're taking a song and then you remix it, and then you split the stems of that, and then you kind of remix it again.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you the stems to flip as the remix for it. So Curtis will remix the Curtis song that I flipped.
Someone call Leonardo DiCaprio, but it's about to go down.
Remixception, man, remixception.
Exactly.
Cool. I like that. So there's something for the whiteboard in there.
Yeah, there is. Remix your remix with stem splits, and then remix that.
Hey, bro, I heard you like remixes.
Yeah. Just put Exhibit's face on the whiteboard, and then you'll know exactly what you need to do.
That's what we got. It's wonderful to have everyone back. Eonlake's been out for a week. I haven't seen Sunwarper in what feels like an age, so it's nice to have everyone back. Got plenty of people in the chat. It's lovely to see them there. Let's get into it, Sunwarper, because we're trying to get on for an hour today. We got, as you said so eloquently, we've got something that's free and something that's definitely not free. There's a beautiful introduction. Let's start with the OPXY, shall we?
All right, let's start with the not so free.
For anyone wondering, this is
the free one is not this. Now this looks pretty cool, but I've been seeing some division on reaction to it in the internet world and stuff. Now Eonlake has an OPZ, and they're claiming the OPXY is like a buffed up or steroided OPZ. And I like that Eonlake made the point you can get an OPZ for about $300. So these are some hardcore steroids they're putting in this XY to get it to the price, which is $2,300. So $2,000 more than what Eonlake is claiming you could get the Z for. So
grand of steroids.
Yeah.
Let's see what that can get you.
Let's see what it does. So do you have the picture pulled up there, Curtis, or can you pull up the site and we'll talk about it a little bit? And then we are going to demo. We obviously don't have a demo for Teenage Engineering. We're just going to show it. And I'd love to hear the chat's opinion. Anybody tuning in, let us know your thoughts on this. We'll share ours. And then Eonlake's, I think, has a unique take as someone who has the Z, so you can talk about comparisons and things like that. But let us know in the chat. And then we'll be demoing this Dawsome Zyklop. Is it Zyklops or Zyklop?
Zyklop.
No S. Okay, Zyklop. So we'll be demoing that afterwards, which is the free one. But anyways, let's take a look at. We just have a blank screen actually at the moment. That's the OPXY. It's a blank canvas for your music creation. No, I'm not sure why it's not. There it is. Maybe that's a video. There we go. Okay. So that's the OPXY. It looks very similar to the OP1. And what's the new version of it? The Field, the OP1 Field?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very similar, but there are a lot of differences. So in their words, they say it's here, it's real, and it's got so much more than you've wished for. A no-compromise dual CPU boosted and fully rebuilt sequencer, sampler, and performance instrument built on the much-loved workflow of the OPZ, or for my friends across the pond, OPZ. Now including built-in CV, effect sends, and a best-in-class DAC, with 8 individual instrument tracks and 8 auxiliary tracks for controlling any external synth, modular or otherwise, and adding effects. So some of the perks: 8 unique synth engines, new drum sampler, multi-sampler, synth sampler, 4 filter types, 24 voice multi-timbral synthesis, players per track, instant sampling, 6 built-in effects, master EQ, master saturator, master compressor and limiter, stereo signal path. They have a thing called Brain Intelligent Transposer, 24 punch-in effects, which I want to hear from Eonlake, because you were mentioning with the OPZ, it has punch-in effects. Creative tape looper. I mean, there's just tons. It just keeps going. 16 track, 64-step sequencer, 10,000 project files with version history, MIDI channels selectable per track, built-in speaker, built-in mic, and there's a whole ton more. I mean, I can keep going, but I think we'll stop there, and we can put a link to the website if you want to check like the full thing. But Eonlake, reading through all of that as an OPZ owner, what's your thoughts?
Well, as I was sort of saying before the show, actually, I've got a lot of little toys that are intended to sort of sketch ideas away from the studio so they can be fleshed out when you get back there. We've talked about a load of gear in the past from that point of view. Most recently, the Move, obviously. And I think of all the things that I've got, the OPZ, I've got an OP1 as well. The OPZ or Z, if you prefer, is the one that has contributed the most songs to my catalogue.
Interesting.
Almost, and also in a much larger way than anything else. There are a couple of tracks, one off each album, that are almost exclusively written on the OPZ, and really just a little bit of overdubbing and mixing in Ableton, and they're done, which is unheard of, really, in my experience for using these things. Usually they generate ideas and the ideas become songs, but you know, to the extent sometimes where the idea is buried in what it actually turns into. So for some reason, the OPZ has been really gelled with me, and I think a lot of it is the fact that some of the really cool things that you can do with this, where you've got a lot of punch-in effects and things like that, but not just you can press them and perform live, but you can also sequence them, and you can parameter lock stuff and so on. So you can make it part of your pattern or whatever it is you're writing.
Yeah, I saw something really cool. Eonlake, I just want to mention, I think it was Ricky Tinez's video showed with the parameter locks and stuff, you can actually control the slope of the lock. Like if you're doing massive changes, it can gradually introduce that change when it goes to the step, or you can have it be, a drastic like pitch 12, pitch plus 12, or it can like slowly slope to it. It's in like the quantized settings, which are per track from what I saw.
Yeah, so that ability to decide to be quite violent or very subtle with that is something new, and yet another thing that's good. Yeah, I think
in the Cat TV real quick for our Cat TV fans.
We have to separate a couple of things in talking about this thing. There's the unspeakable price. It's crazy. I mean, it puts me in mind of that old Chris Rock video where he's saying love rap music, getting tired of defending it though. It's like, I love Teenage Engineering. I love the crazy stuff they put out. The OP1 has got such a lovely feel to it. It's so tactile, all those little buttons, and just the absolutely solid case it's in and everything is great. The OPZ is a bit of a compromise in that regard, but the money.
Yeah, I just want to show too the OPZ. Let me make sure. I have to switch back tabs so I can share it. But OPZ on their website is $429. And Curtis, I don't know. Do you have the website pulled up? Can you show the XY price from them? But I believe it's $2,300 or $2,200.
I imagine a second-hand eBay price, if that's full list on their site. Yeah, it's going to be a couple of grand cheaper than the OPXY, isn't it?
Yeah. Now it doesn't have the screen. You said you can use the phone. It doesn't have a lot of features that this would have. But what do you think? Do you think that from everything it sounds like
really interesting ways of creating and modifying parts?
Yeah,
it really, I think you could get pretty lost in it. I think it would be immense fun to use. If money were no object, I'd have your arm off, without question. I'd love one. I would hate to pay for one.
Yeah, well, the chat seems to echo some of your sentiments. Smiling Air says it looks pretty, but I don't think there's a world that makes sense to pay that until a lottery win. Mike, one of our patrons, says if it's an evolution of OPZ, it will kick ass because OPZ has amazing sequencing abilities. Yeah. They continue, though. I had an OPZ and it created my track Twisty. I noticed the had. What happened to the Z? Did you get rid of it, Mike, in the quest for Ableton exclusivity? And then Mike adds, I'd love an OPXY, but the price is way too high. And I just also want to say hello to one of our other people. Abby. What's going on, Abby? How are you? And yeah, but I'd love to hear everybody's take on this. If anybody got it, is looking to get it, let us know in the chat.
I think Mike's nailed it, though. I think they have done what he said and produced something that is like an OPZ on steroids. Unfortunately, you know, expensive as well. But the composing tool on it, the transposition tools with the brain feature and everything looks brilliant on it, which I suppose it should do, really, shouldn't it? I mean, if you're going to charge that amount of money, but it looks like it's a bit of an idea machine, as well as a good sketch pad, as well as a bit of fun, you know. And it talks MIDI, so you can use those compositional tools on other voices, you know, if you hardware that you've got and so on. But yeah, I don't think people will be stampeding to buy it for the obvious reason.
Curtis, what's your thought as a new SP404 owner? What you're thinking here?
I feel this is why guilds should be a thing. Bear with me. There's a point.
He's gonna get there. I think we'll see. We can judge him if he doesn't. Let's all take note.
Bear with me. The reason for that is because it's obviously dynamic. It's obviously very different in that regard. It gives a lot of people what they would need. It fits in your bag. It's beautiful. It's sleek. It seems to do a lot of things that people want to do. It's also ridiculously expensive for the price of it. But if you were part of a guild or you're part of a community, you could all chip in and you could buy one. You know, you could just buy one for the group and then just share it. You know, and it would, you know, you could work out a rota, a bit like you have a cleaning rota, you know, that kind of thing, and you share and you make and you collaborate, and you know, maybe we're getting to that stage. Maybe that's what we need to do. I would love it. I really would. I don't think on this particular incarnation I'm ever going to be able to afford it. It's $2,000. Even if I did have $2 and a bit grand, there are so many different things that need my attention more, sadly, and that's kind of where it's at. It's a lottery winning device, at least from where I'm standing, and it would be great to have one. It'd be great to see and explore, and you know, but it's insane. You know,
I just want to poke a little hole in this guild idea, because don't you think this workflow seems a bit complex to quickly trade around? I think there'd be some time to learn.
Yeah, you would need some time with it.
I mean, look at that thing. Look at all those buttons and knobs. But I'm just joking around with you. But Eonlake, do you also have an OP1?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read a couple more chats, but while I do that, I'd like to hear kind of your thoughts between the OP1 and this. Like, what's the purpose of, not necessarily I'm not being critical. I just want to hear your thoughts on like the place of each in a workflow, right? But let me just, while you think of that, I'll give you some time. Mike answered the question I posed to him. Here's what happened to the OPZ for him. He sold it, bought a Push 3 standalone because, well, you can guess. That's not a shock whatsoever. Smiling Air says, it better sound amazing and break new ground of workflow and sound design. Too many luxury priced audio hardware don't innovate enough to justify the cost. I think he's got a good point there, because you look at a lot of synths, like boutique synths, they're 8-voice analog synths, right? It's not really breaking new ground. It sounds amazing, but you know, I guess we always talk like where's the place for it? What's the purpose of it? So I think that's a good point. I mean, I think things can be boutique and can be built well and like a luxury item, but I get where he's coming from. But Eonlake, do you feel ready to tackle this question?
Yeah, but just before that, I would say one of the questions to ask with something like this is, what does it give me that I don't have already? Can this be done already with other means? And I think a lot of it can. I do think they've got some features under the hood that that you can't get elsewhere, but probably will come elsewhere, you know, in a matter of time, as all things do. There is some innovation there, and I think there is some element of the sum of the parts making it more than, you know, it is on paper, turning it into something a bit special, but not that special. As far as the OP1 and the OPZ are concerned, the OP1 seems to be more built around the tape recording facility and the 4-track that you get with that, because you get a similar amount of voices that you can synthesize and whatnot. And on the OP1 you have to record it, and you can speed it up and slow it down, and you can edit what you've recorded and copy and paste parts of it all over the place. Whereas the OPZ is more about sequencing. It certainly feels a lot more about sequencing, although there is a reel-to-reel effect on that lets you record all your audio and then splice it, basically slice it like you would on a sampler and play back the different sections together, but also strangely branches out into sequencing like video and effects and that, which is quite weird and not something you'd expect to do on a pretty cheap small plastic thing. So they kind of do different things. One's more sequency, one's more like record and playback.
I got you. And just to show it, I wanted to show the OP1 Field. This is the other one, very similar form factor, but you can see like keyboard stuff like that, $2,000. So similar in price. I would think the original OP1 you can probably get on the used market for a bit cheaper, I would think.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't actually know what the Field changed. If it added a ton compared to the OP1.
It added a bunch of stuff in capability and to do with sampling and stereo and the amount it can hold and whatnot. And I mean, it doubled in price almost at the same time. Oh,
really? Wow. Teenage Engineering fascinates me because they have things that are $100, like the PO33, which is just awesome. And then you go $2,000 or a speaker for $500 or whatever. So it's interesting the way they do stuff. I want to say hello to another patron of ours. FCC is in the chat. Says, hey, everyone, what is going on? Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Gentlemen, do you have anything else you want to add on the OPXY? Curtis, anything left for the OP on your end?
No, I'd love one. Can't afford one. That's all I've got on that one.
Yeah.
Eonlake.
If anyone's got a few lying around that they don't need,
yeah,
it all is.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I wouldn't say I was like, ooh, I gotta get this. It just doesn't seem for me per se. But it does seem cool, and I think if I watched more videos, which I'm trying not to, like I would change my tune, and that's
never watched a video unless you're already hooked.
Yeah, no, I mean I watched some so that I could understand what it was doing and all that stuff to talk about it today. But I really wanted to hear your perspective as someone who has an OPZ, because the big claim here is this is a buffed up OPZ. So is it worth almost $2,000 or $2,000 more than what you can do with the OPZ? So let me just get your final verdict on that. Do you think it's worth it?
No.
Okay.
I'd love one. I think it's probably really good.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
So I guess it depends on the context, right?
It does, yeah. I mean, if you compare it to the original OP and the original OPZ, it's hideously expensive. If you compare it to the OP1 Field, it's only it's a bit more, a few $100 more.
Oh, I love that context.
No, it's a whole nother perspective on that, isn't it?
Yeah, so it depends on your budget and what you need it to do, right?
Exactly, and I tend to think that these things, you don't buy them because you need that functionality. They just don't. Nobody had bought an OP1 because they needed a bit of a weird 4-track with cow effects and a boxer on the screen and stuff. I mean, you just don't. It's curiosity, and it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I get that. It's like it's an interesting little thing that you're buying into in that regard. And if you've got that money to spend and it speaks to you, sure. I mean, there must be some way. I mean, I've never seen it. There must be some way of getting 2.3 grand somehow. Never managed to figure that one out myself. But there
probably involves guns or some sort of illegal activity or controlled substance.
A job. What's that?
A job.
The job, yeah.
But that'll take you away from learning it. So trade-offs, I guess.
Yeah, it's all right. It'd be good to see. I'd love to see it come out on the second-hand market and play around. Like in my way, you guys were talking, I was thinking that notion of like you got the Syntact, Digitact, and Octatrack and all that. Like they all like the Pokemon, right? You got to catch them all. Can you imagine if these three, the field, the OPXY, and the OPZ were...
They need one more high budget one, then you can really do that Pokemon comparison.
Right. Well, that's my point. I suppose that's where I'm coming from. I'm just glad that they're not so much like taking something away and in the notion of forcing you to buy another one. That seems to be where a lot of companies going, and at least Teenage Engineering, all right, are looking at it and going, you know what? I think $2,000's enough. I think we'll leave it at that. We won't expect them to buy any more, which is in this day and age is quite a nice thing to see.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of that, hold on, like I want to read this comment from Balrog Soft, but I just want to mention, like, they have a diverse range of products in terms of pricing. They have like the PO33 100 or $150. The EP133 I think is $300. OPZ is $420. So like Balrog Soft says, I prefer my EP133 KO and my OPZ for a quarter of what the OPXY costs.
And they fit in a bag.
Yeah, and Lars says Teenage Engineering is unhinged and I love it. Yeah. Don't they sell a table or a desk?
Yeah. If you think this is expensive, yeah.
Let me Google that real quick.
Is this like an IKEA thing, or?
I'll tell you what, Curtis, you move on to the next thing, and while you do that, I'm gonna find that table and we'll share it after you bring up.
I did think there were Digitact parallels with this piece of kit. I think it could perform a similar function, but we thought the Digitact was expensive.
It's like peanuts in comparison, isn't it? Well, now is a good time as any. It's just to say this is part of the show. We'll say thank you to our patrons and everyone who tunes in. So thank you ever so much for being here. We are not sponsored. We don't take sponsorships or advertising revenue or anything like that. Keeps the show independent, and it's therefore the generosity of our patrons that come in each month and be part of the community that keep this running. And as Audionautic grows, we have many of these overheads that keep cropping up. So we couldn't do this without you. And so from the bottom of our heart, thank you ever so much for everything you do. If you are watching and you like what you hear, or if you are watching and you like what you hear or what you're seeing, consider becoming a patron. If you go across to patreon.com/Audionautic, you can make a pledge. This is all in Czech crowns. I apologize, but basically $2, $5, and $7 in that order. And for that, you get access to a lot of exclusive content that we make. For example, we have new sample packs coming out in a couple of weeks. December's coming up. I've got to finish it off. But that is Patreon only, for example. And that's originally captured and crafted sounds that Sunwarper and I find as we go about our ambulating life. And yeah, there's the in-depth of the community, for example, Starstream. Once a month we have a hangout, and we just sit and we nerd out about all these things off air, just having a chat on a Sunday. Really good fun. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate the fact that you're here, spending your precious time with us. And yeah, come be a patron. It's good fun.
Yeah, patreon.com/Audionautic. I can't speak today. No sleep. I'll say it again. Patreon.com/Audionautic. The link is in the description. Lots of features and additional bonus content and stuff like that. You can also come on the show to voice your own opinions about the Teenage Engineering or whatever we're discussing. I do quickly want to show this Teenage Engineering field desk. Are you ready for this? This is crazy. Yeah. $15.99. That's not $15.99. That's $1,599 for a desk. Should we run through the features? We ran through the XY features. Maybe we should run through the features. 75% recycled with that Circal anodized aluminum alloy from Scandinavian manufacturer Hydro. Flat packed, easy to assemble and disassemble. That's good. Attach custom accessories coming soon, or attach your own creations. Dimensions. I don't need to run through that. Please note, Field Desk is excluded from our free shipping offer. Customer assumes the shipping cost stated at checkout. So yeah, if you need a desk, there's an option, I guess.
Yeah.
Why? Please, anyone watching, listening, who has bought it, please. Why? Tell us. What is it worth it?
I hope it sounds like it's build quality is good. I mean, you have to build it, but yeah, I wonder how much the shipping is too. They say you have to pay for the shipping. I'd be curious what that shipping is. Anyways,
probably more than our CDs.
I'm sure there's a demand for it because they still have it. It's the perfect table for the OPXY. So there we go. Yeah, if anybody has one, let us know. There's no roast, no judgment. Just curious to hear. I'm sure it's good. I mean, all their stuff. My PO33 was $100, and I got it 3 years ago or something. It's still going strong, no issues. You know, so at least I mean that's the only one I can attest to. And I've gotten to play the EP133 at NAMM. Build quality always seems pretty good. I didn't mean to share that again, but I do think that comment is good. But anyways, moving on from there, how about we get into something free? We covered something that's
a bit cheaper.
$2,300. Let's go into something that's a lot cheaper. And looks like Steve, our resident synthesizer cat, is game for this. So what are we talking about? The Dawsome Zyklop.
Yeah, that's what this is. It's a fantastic free synth which was picked up. I've discovered, and it was brought it straight to the table. I want to show you guys. There's a lot here, completely free. There's also a hell of a lot for your money, if you want to put it that way. So I'm in the beginning days of looking at it. Am I sharing? Can you see this?
I am now.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
This
Pillow
is
Piano. I love that name.
Right. Okay. So, I've got to be honest, to be candid, I've got as far as looking through the presets and seeing what you can do and what you can emulate. I haven't got so far with the modulation side of things or building patches yet because it's very deep. There's a lot.
We'll judge you silently, but just carry on. I'm just kidding. No, it's all good, man.
But I mean, if you look at these, there's all these presets coming in on anything, and it's much like. And
wait, can I see that preset again?
On Earth,
presets? No, the full preset list.
You
showed it. Oh, so are those artists? Because Aerovane, isn't that a IDM artist?
Yep. So we've got Aerovane, we've got Dawsome himself, we've got sound author Data Broth, who does a lot of Vital stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of people who have come and built this. It's great. There seems to be a real community behind it, which is really interesting to see. We love a synthesizer that's got community involved. And all these parameters are fully changeable, fully moddable, and my battery's about to die.
Your Mac's gonna die, man. Let's get a sound before it just dies. Or get a charger, man.
My charger is over there, so I'll tell you what, we'll do a little bit, and then while you guys are talking about it, I'll charge up. So just having a sound of this is what this sounds like, for example.
Oh wait, we gotta unmute. Oh, you gotta unmute. You muted yourself.
Did I mute myself?
Yes. So you'll have to. Whoa.
How's that?
There we go. I'm gonna just make sure here we go. Reduce mic background noise is off.
So as a basis, that going into here. Also, this panic button is really cool, which just shuts it off completely. Panic button is great if you're sound designing.
Nice.
Yeah, great fun. This from the offset, you can see that you've got a really cool sound. You've got a really cool, interesting textures coming through, which are fully moddable. So you play, and for example, you can move these things around and try playing them in different places. For example, it's really fun. Really a lot of fun coming through. And so for example, adding harmonics just by playing around with this. This one animates a signal, can create some movement, create some textures that are coming through. It's really nice. And then down here as well, which kind of moves the sound in a way that I can't quite describe, but it's fun nonetheless. Now down here on this bottom row, these three in particular, for example, you can alter and modulate the sounds based on whether they are, for example, acting like a string. So you bring this through, it'd be like the bending of a string on a violin or a viola or something like that.
Can you just lower the volume a little bit? I think it's clipping.
Let's take that down. Is that all right?
Yeah, there we go.
Go through there. So, for example, that's coming through, which is kind of beautiful. And then over here, we've got something like more like brass. So you can modify the timbre just as if it was like a brass instrument, for example, like overblowing it and stuff like that. Really fascinating sounds coming through. Again, you can change the wavetables, which might speak to Smiling Errors, who's a big fan of wavetable at the moment. So as you can see, just from the offset, there's a lot here. And this is completely and utterly 100% free, which is just beautiful. There's a ton of sounds just quite off out the barrier, which then if you comment, you can just play around with and move around to your heart's content. We've got a whole selection of effects. We've got saturation, got compression in there as well. Obviously down here you've got modulation and what everyone can be doing and does do. It's completely and utterly moddable in that fashion. And I could keep saying that, but for now, would you make
get a charger for now? You're stressing me out, man. It's gonna just die. I'm like, just go get a charger, man. I do have a question for you, but I'll ask you when you come back. Eonlake, what do you think about this? Did you already go and download it in a new tab? I think you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, it's installing now. It's nearly finished.
Is that why you muted it? Because you're clicking away on the keyboard?
Yeah,
did you actually grab it? I'm going to grab it after. I don't have my laptop, so.
3 LFOs. Well, it looks like 3 ADSLs as well, because you've got main ADSL and ADSL 1 and 2. You've got all of this scanning waveforms. I don't know how many different sort of grainy type things you can have at once, but I'm happy to find out by messing around with it at that price.
At that price, yeah, free.
And if this amount of people want to get together behind a plugin and make it happen, I want to encourage them really by using it. You know, it's fantastic things like this exist. If you think about the guys that Curtis is teaching and people trying to get into the game, although they're taking up our space. But no, it's good to have stuff that's available for everyone. That it's not, because that's art, isn't it? It should be for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I want to read a few chats, and then there's something I want to mention that I see on the plugin, and then Curtis, I want to see more demo. But FCC says, anyone remember Meccano? I do not. But
yes, it's like Meccano. The field desk looks like it, basically.
Oh, okay.
It's a construction thing with long bits of metal with holes punched in them and like rivet-like things where you would join them.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Lars says that's a noise table. Yeah, this is all back on the OP. What was it? Field desk. Yeah. Also, now moving on. Lars says Dawsome is. I can't say good. I gotta say awesome. Dawsome is awesome, but he says good. I bought their Love plugin a while back, and it is great for big ambient textures. FCC says nice, downloading now. Smiling Ears has a question for you, Curtis. Is it a synth or a rompler? But before that, I just want to mention, I see over there on the left side of the plugin, CPU is set to eco. So is that you can change like how much, like have you? Well, I guess let's put it this way: have you noticed much CPU drain or anything like that, like Diva, let's say?
No, I haven't. This is an M2, I believe, on here. Yeah, this is an M2 chip in here, which is quite powerful. But I haven't noticed any issues. I haven't put it on here, which is a Windows 32 gig of RAM. So it doesn't seem to be too ET. It doesn't seem to be too hungry when it comes to CPU power.
Test it.
Well, that's what I need to do, a stress test. That would be
I might. I did a stress test for Diva on my M2 Pro, the MacBook Pro, but it's an M2 Pro. Someone corrected me because I just called it an M2, and it's actually the M2 Pro chip. My bad. But I got, I think, 44 instances of Diva with like one of the heaviest settings and on the highest quality. So I'd be curious to see what this can do, but we'll have to both test it and see what we can get, because it sounds like you've got the M2. Is that an Air, MacBook Air?
Yeah, this is a MacBook Air on this
Yeah, so
one.
maybe we can both test it. I'm definitely going to download this. But okay, so Curtis, is it a synth or a rompler? What is it?
I think now that Smiley Air brings it up, it probably is closer to a rompler in that regard. Because you can. One thing I haven't mentioned just yet is you can grab.
Oh, that's loud. Hold on there. You're making us deaf, bro.
You can now. I've just dragged it in, and you
drop the volume first.
Has to be resampled. It depends on what there is and what's going through. I haven't explored that yet, and I don't really know how it works or what to do with it.
So you can drop your own sounds in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And resynthesize it. I need to have a look at how you go about doing
default sample level is like blasted, by the way.
Let's take that off then, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's take that off. But yeah, you can really get into it. And I'd like to be able to, when I've got time, I'd like to have a look at where this is coming from and when it works and when it doesn't work, because it doesn't seem to be working for one shots. Not sure why.
Maybe it's not long enough to sample.
Quite possibly, yeah. So yeah, in that regard, probably closer to a rompler in that regard. You do have a keyboard down here, and it is very playable with MIDI. I've been playing around with what you can do with it, and it can do that. Yeah, there's a lot here that you get a lot to play with. And the guy, I can't remember his name. I think his name's Peter or something. The guy who runs Dawsome. He obviously has a passion for this, and he obviously cares very much about giving this out to people. So yeah, in that sense, go for it.
All right, I got you. Can you just give us a couple more little sounds? I'd like to hear that pillow piano, because I think you were playing that beforehand, and it sounded very cool.
Pillow piano. Let me try and find it.
Was that the name of it, right? Pillow piano, wasn't it? Or am I just tripping?
It was.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not crazy. I was like, I swear.
Let me try and find it. Pillow piano. There it is.
Look at all those. Yeah, there we go. That's quantum clockwork. I love these names though.
I know, right? They are
empty skyscrapers. That sounds cool.
You hear that?
Oh yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. There's so much you can do with this. And I mean, let's just play around with some of these parameters while we're going through. And I can see this being, for example, MIDI controlled to this launch control, for example. So instead of doing this with the mouse, you're doing it as you're playing, and you're automating everything. There's a lot here. So yeah, a lot of fun can be played. And this is only just brushed on the surface. I've been playing with this in between gigs and in between events and stuff. And I've only just scratched the surface, but I can already see myself just running in and finishing a Fragments 3, for example, with it.
Yeah, this looks sick.
It's a lot to play with.
Eonlake, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, it's a little bit granular. I love the idea of being able to put your own stuff in it. So, you know, you can write a part of a song and then bounce that out and drop it into an instrument that plays in the song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what happens when you put vocals in it and you start, you know, layering them and putting things in, you know, getting them to play back a lot of grains simultaneously and so on. I just see a lot of potential here for mangling and layering and weirdness, which is always fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's just like, why not try it, right? It's free. Yeah, I don't know if there's a con. If anybody can think of a con here, go ahead and share it. But yeah,
I think it's one of those theoretical ones, like you know, an extra few hundred meg on your hard disk or something. You know.
There we go. Yeah. All right. Eonlake always has to be the downer.
Well, I don't consider that.
No, you just have to think logically. Yeah. It could be an issue if you have like 991 gigs filled on your hard drive, I guess.
You could argue you've already got an issue if that's the case.
Yeah, too many samples, man. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers it. We've got about 12, 13 minutes left. Do we want to do a quick round robin? I know you had one in the docket.
Yeah, why not? As soon as we're there, we said if we've got time to do it, I'll have a look. Let me get rid of this for now. As beautiful it is just to stare at.
I worry this is one that's going to get Eonlake going for hours, though. So Eonlake, rein yourself in, my friend.
Just switch it off at the end. Just
We're
wave.
actually we're talking about maximalism and minimalism. So we're going to do, as maximalists, all three of us pretty much, we're going to do an exercise of minimalism and try to keep this short.
Yeah.
All right, Curtis, I know I just kind of teased it, but I'll let you set it up. What are we talking about today?
It's just a nice little round robin. We haven't done one for a while. It's just this notion of the maximalist approach versus the minimalist approach. There are many ways to skin a cat, as I like to say. And
I was like, you say that right with Steve looking at you?
Sorry, his ears just poked up a little bit.
Yeah, he's like, what?
Yeah. Do I have fleas again? No.
This isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah. There is always this notion of are we keeping things to say like 8 tracks, 4 tracks? Some of the gear we've looked at today is very minimalist. You've got 4 tracks coming in. The Move has 6, am I right? Or am I 4? Can't remember. But us 3, we lean towards the maximalist. I've just finished a collab, for example, where I think I've got 120 channels, which is the biggest I've ever done. And so but we are also, all 3 of us in our own different ways, are in a space of looking at what we're doing and examining our process and examining our works. And I want to talk very briefly towards the end of this show today about what we prefer, what we're exploring, and the benefits of perhaps trying a different workflow and something that we've been doing for so long, perhaps turning that on its head, and what the benefits of that could be.
All right. And where do you want to start, Curtis?
I want to start with Eonlake. I want to see what he's got to say.
I'm just going to give that clause one more time there, Eonlake. Rated.
No, I'm still thinking. Is there what's the question? What's the benefit in trying different things?
Mm-hmm.
While you think, I just want to point this out. Abby has a great chat here. 120. Why?
It was.
Let me ask why. Let's start there. What brought you to this point that you hate yourself so much?
I think the question really should be: is it an illness, and is an intervention required?
I think we're getting there.
It's an interesting story. I don't want to go into. I don't particularly want to go into it now, but I did discover quite a lot of it. I have put the finished track in our Discord, which, by the way, if you're not part of our Discord, you should be a part of our Discord. It was a collab that I did with the kids at school, and it was a whole thing. I won't get into it now because we don't have much time, but I do want to bring it back the next time we do a round robin, because it is a really interesting couple of things that I found out, both for sampling, ease of use, dopamine, and quick production.
Quick production. Yeah, 120 does not sound like quick production to me.
No, it doesn't sound like a quick mix either. I mean, that would be an absolute nightmare. So you guys have this an approach, and I've been like this in the past as well, where you like to, let's say, multi-track parts, 4 basses and whatnot.
You mean 8 or 16 basses, right?
Yeah. And I absolutely get why you're doing it and how you're making it work. It doesn't do itself, let's put it that way. But I have over time come to the conclusion that I prefer to use individual sounds if possible. If they have the tonal information that I need for the sound that I want, i.e. maybe there isn't enough bass, but it does produce frequencies at that range that can be boosted, then I find layering sounds on top of each other when they're playing something either the same or similar can have unless it's like microsecond accurate, can have a kind of a blurring effect, a kind of effect.
Real quick, are we talking like synthesized instruments or live instruments? Because I think there is a difference between those two.
Could be a mixture of both. It's something you'll see probably in synthesized instruments first, because they produce often a wider spectrum of sound. less so in natural instruments that are based on vibration and so on.
Yeah.
But even so, I mean, they tend to build up peaks a lot. And, you know, again, Sunwolf has spoken about, you know, guitar tracking techniques and playing chords in different positions, different, you know, amp sounds.
I will just say, multi-track guitars sound awesome.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
If you're doing like distorted
But
tones, but not for like, yeah, exactly. You have to, and it takes
if you
a ton
record
of
the same part over and over again, what you get is the peaks in that sound get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it's just horrible. So I don't know. When you're talking about minimalism versus maximalism, for individual sounds, I prefer minimalism if I can get, you know, enough out of the one sound that I'm going with. If not, I might add another one to boost it along, but I try and keep it simple in that regard. I tend to go quite stacked with sounds on top of sounds on top of sounds because I like there to be a lot of audio information. It doesn't have to be loud or high in the mix or anything, but I like a lot going on, little interesting parts just to keep your brain going, or for you to notice something after 20 listens. You know, the fact that you haven't just heard it all the first time you've heard a track. But at the same time, these days, I am trying to bring the track count down and the part count down and do more with the parts and make the sounds evolve more, just because that's what interests me at the moment. And linear harmony rather than stacked chords and things like that. So I don't know what happens when you try and go minimal. I've done it a few times now, and I've ended up with something that's really full on wall of sound, generally speaking. It's not a bad thing that happens. I don't beat myself up about it. It almost makes me want to do that again because I don't care if it does come out maximalist and I'm trying to be minimalist. As long as something comes out that I like. It does frustrate me that some people are very good at this and making simple ideas work and talk, and it's not something that comes naturally to me. And that's what makes me think that I should do more of it. For growth and improvement and so on. So yeah, I don't know. I think really you can argue about these things. There are a lot of good points either way, and we're going to hear some more in a minute. But I think I would probably always come back to balance is the key to everything. The right balance, and that doesn't mean, you know, the balance can be different. Some things need to be quite empty and sparse and atmospheric, and other things need to be quite thick and urgent and driving and so on. It's just it's horses for courses, and I think balance is key. But there are definite benefits to doing one or the other, and I think the standard Audionaut approach of learn what the rules are so you know when you want to break them. It's probably a good direction to come from when it comes to this sort of thing. And I think that's probably my time up, isn't it?
I think it's been up, but I wanted to hear you. So I was going to commend you on keeping it under like 10 minutes, my friend. No, it's all good, man. They're all really good points. Curtis, unless you want to interject, I'm happy to share my part, and then we can move to you as the to kind of bring it all together since you brought it up.
Let's do you, chat, and then me.
All right. So I, out of necessity, have had to switch from a more maximalist approach to a minimalist approach. And I actually find I like it a lot better because I just get things done. Like all the stuff I'm building songs in DAW setups, and usually just one piece of gear with very rigid limitations. Like you have 2 bus effects or 1 bus effect. Where are you going to place? What are you going to put in it? And then, wouldn't you know, like putting all the melodic things through just one really cool delay, like Kodama on the SP, it just works. And instead of overthinking it and doing all these EQs and stuff, I'm just like, F it. Just, you know, that's good. And then you just mix it a little bit with some tightening up the EQ, like on the stereo track, and add, you know, mastering and all that. And I've actually really liked doing it. Now, I wouldn't say that's a good starting approach because I know what I want to hear and I know how to tweak it as I get in. Like if I need to EQ something, I could put filters on it, get creative with the high or low pass filter, cut the low end and stuff. But it took a long time to get there. But it's an inspiring workflow because it's just more immediate, you know, you just like record something. And like you were saying, Eon, like try to make the sound you're working with the best possible sound. And then you don't need the extra layers. And like, I don't even think about panning a lot of times now. I either keep things straight on or just add a little bit, you know, like move stuff a little bit. And then when I really want it to be wide, I'll fix that in the computer later. But anyways, my approach now is a bit of a hybrid thing. So what I do is I start very minimalist, like one piece of gear, sample in a sound from like the mini log, do something to it, build some drums. Then I move that into the DAW, either as a stereo track and stem split it, or with like overbridge or mutes. And then I restructure it in the DAW. And then just if I need to mix things again, you know, do anything like that, it's way quicker. And then if I want to add sounds to it, I can do MIDI, or I can, what I like to do is take the audio tracks and like chop them into quarters and then duplicate them, reverse the copy of each one so that it does this trippy sound, speed it up, slow it down, do this stuff. And that's like my background sounds. And usually I find I'll create a B section or something from that, but that's it. And then I just call it a day instead of like multi-tracking 16 guitars or something. Or if a bass is sounding weak, you know, I'll split it and just do 2 different EQ things to it, but it's still the same bass. So there's no phase issues because I've got the different, like they have their own individual EQ sections. That's the key thing. But yeah, I don't worry about it too much anymore. And I actually find I just get to making the music and doing the fun part of mixing instead of worrying about like, oh my God, this and that, you know, it's like, whatever.
That's a big change for you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a necessity. I have a kid that requires most of my time and some lessons and stuff. So it's like, yeah, I just have to kind of do it and have fun with it. I think doing those YouTube videos helped me because it's like making those every week and then listening to those tracks. And I'm like, I wasn't even worried about mixing much. Just what I intuitively was like, oh, this is muddy. While I'm making the video, I'm like, okay, I'm going to EQ that, do this and that. And then just like the jam's the jam. And if I really need to fix something, I'll stem split it, overbridge it, whatever, you know, depending on the way I did the recording. So yeah, it's a big change, but I wouldn't say, like I said, it's not like the best start point because like I know what I'm looking for because I had such a maximalist approach for so long where I would have like, and I still do it sometimes. Like if I'm working in the DAW exclusively, I may be like, ooh, I like this, but I want another characteristic to the harmonic. Let's add another synth and I'll, you know, do this, but I just don't have the time for that anymore. So
that's what I was going to ask you. Just, do you think it's because you did it the first way that enabled you to do it the second way?
Definitely. Yeah. There's definitely like a yin and yang to it for sure. Cause it's like, you can't know it. I'm just reading Lars's comment. I'll get to that in a second because I'll read the comments. But yeah, you kind of need to know the perspective here before you can just be like, oh, okay. Because like I'm saying, like intuitively, when I watch back those videos, I'm just being like, oh, that's muddy. I'm gonna fix this with a high pass filter, and oh, I need a little more bass. Let's add some resonance. Like I know to do that. But if I hadn't spent all this time learning all these things, building all these versions of it, I wouldn't think like that. All right.
You learned balance too, right? By doing all of that, you learned what it should sound like.
Exactly. Yeah.
You found
so there's no right way and there's no wrong way. But I think depending on your time and what you have, and if you're the type of person that gets really bogged down in the details to the point you don't get something created or never finish it, I don't think maximalism is the way to go. But if you're someone that just loves the process and wants to just like learn everything, it's awesome. Curtis, we've got a ton of chat, but anything you want to add? We'll get to your opinion in a second, but I know you wanted to do chat next, but anything you want to add before we go to this?
No, just that I think it's cool to see the arc and witness the arc come through, and how you're attaching and using a bit like the winding path that Survey Channel was saying, this notion of bending and making your music a constant but adaptable to the world or the real world situation in which you live. It's incredibly important to recognize and follow through with that.
Yeah, it's the only way, right? All right, let's go to, well, speaking of Survey Channel, after, I haven't seen him in a little while. It's good to see you, Survey Channel. He says, hey all, great to see you. Welcome back. Lars says, the most number of channels I've ever had on a track is 12. How are you getting anywhere near 100? Yeah. he could talk about that in a future thing, I suppose. It also depends on genre. But it does depend on genre and things like that. Smiling says, if I wrote a song with one instrument and a singing part, it's already minimum. If I write without a voice part, it ends up stupid big. Lars, to Curtis's point about the dopamine that he learned, it's always the dopamine for Curtis. FCC says, recently layered a second bass track to get extra tones I wanted, but almost always use single instruments. Yeah. I will say when it comes to like a bass thing, I do still love, I don't typically do it on DAW-less tracks, but I'll do it in the DAW afterwards. I still love to do a MIDI track of bass and a real bass and have like if I'm going for like a live bass kind of sound, the FM bass gives that added pluck and more like a controlled sound compared to the variation of like a human hand picking. So I just love that combination. So I do still do that if and when it calls for it. Like if I'm doing
master mix engineers do it. They use a DI for the low end and they use the real amp for the top end.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll do that sometimes too in F3. So it's like just the low end or, a sub bass as MIDI and then the thing. But I never go to 8 basses. I still haven't gotten there yet, Curtis, but maybe one day. Survey Channel says, I learned a few things from the hiatus. Good to see you all again. The boys back at it. The crowd going wild. Appreciate it. And it is great to see you, Survey Channel. Don't be a stranger. Yeah. Lars says, make a track that is just one stereo channel with 20 VSTs on a chain on it. I've done that. Have you guys done that?
Generative.
Have you guys done that though?
No.
No. I've done where it's just a single performance of a synth or a guitar and just a bunch of effects for reverbs and stuff and call it a day. One time I reversed it. That was my cheat, but yeah. All right. What else have we got? FCC says, I think I'm getting more minimal. Does that come with more confidence? I don't know. It should. Because if you're willing to go more minimal, it should. Right? Because you're now having the confidence in the sound that you're making rather than being like, I need to buffer it with this and with this and with that. So, yeah. Let's get to Lars's comment. Train your son to mix your tracks, and then you can spend more time to write. Problem solved. I think he needs to be a little older, but we'll get there. He's still in he's got a little time, let's say. FCC says, but you're right, Sunwarper, less time means you muck about far less. Yeah, you kind of just by nature of the situation you're in. What else? FCC, or not FCC, I apologize. Survey Channel, very true. Precision with the F about time I have is key. Yeah, there you go. We did some curse words last episode, but we are trying to. It did affect the Spotify and Apple, so I'm reining it in a little bit. So just experiment
this time.
No, we can't blame Eon. Like I think it might have been because we were talking about Spotify. We justified it. Yeah.
I think it's a healthy hit, that one.
Yeah. It was worth it. It was worth it. All right, Curtis, we have a couple minutes, or I can just bounce when I have to go. It's up to you guys. But let's hear your thoughts. Bring it all together, man.
I wonder if it's the question is about what you want to be getting out of the track. I quite frequently is this going to be a produced track or is this going to be like what I would call like a jam track, right? My jam tracks generally have a lot fewer ideas going on and they focus on the sounds and how they interact. Whereas the produced ones would be lots of layers, lots of samples, lots of mucking around. No way it could be reproduced live or anything like that. One tends to be a bit more minimal, one tends to be a bit more maximalist. I feel like I identify with the authenticity of the minimalist ones, mainly because, like you say, we're doing more with the sound. In that regard, you're making the sounds speak and you're making the sounds have more of a place within the mix. Whereas the maximalist is that wall of sound, it's just ear candy galore and just everywhere and just keeping you entertained for 3.5 minutes or however long the track has to be. But obviously both have their merits in that regard. For me, I've been exploring more of the minimalist, mainly through the SP and doing more with the instrumentation and effects than necessarily stacking instruments and bussing instruments and making things sound really thick. One is really good, like producing is really good for diving deep into the DAW and making sound literally speak with each other and talk and move within itself and have a conversation. And then the instrumentation is practicing. I think we spend a lot. I mean, I might be speaking I might be speaking and projecting, but I spend a lot of time producing and not enough time practicing. And there's a guitar that sits there and wants to be played more than it probably is. And I think if you put on a trajectory the notion of my hours spent practicing the guitar and put that in a correlation with when I first picked up an audio interface, I think it would be very much a negative correlation. I think the more time I spend recording and producing and engineering, the less I actually practice my instrument. And I'm using minimalism as a way to write that, because it's okay, this is about the guitar, which means I have to pluck consistently, which means I have to play the chord. I can't play the chord properly. You know, I can't bum a note. I have to do this properly, you know. And I think that's important. I think both are real good tools for what you'll need to do it for. But they come hand in hand. You know, you can't be it's not so great to know everything about Ableton and then not know how to play your instrument, and vice versa in this world, I suppose you can say. So I always tend to begin every track by going, okay, is this going to be a produced song or is this going to be a performed song? Is it going to be reconstructed live? And that helps me kind of navigate which way to take the track. Is that concise enough for you, Sam Walker?
Yeah. No, it's good to hear.
Definitely a consideration that's made me get things a bit simpler as well, thinking about how would this be reproduced if it needed to be played live. It's definitely a consideration. You're right. It's a good point.
Yeah,
I think
that is a good point. And then you could always just kind of bust things down if you have those maximalist ones for live performance.
Yeah, I had to do that.
Yeah.
Arrangements you couldn't possibly play live. Not without a few more.
I mean, it's always good. I've always struggled going back to songs after they're finished. I think it's probably one of the reasons why I'm not more prolific when it comes to playing live, is because I don't like particularly going back and bouncing tracks and trying to reconstruct it, because it's a moment in time. For me, it's past, and I'm trying to slowly drag myself out of that. But it's this notion of, now I have to go in and I have to bounce all the tracks and the stems and rearrange them.
Set it up.
I just want give it again. Just give me that dopamine. Let me.
Yeah, there you go. Bring it back to what Lars was saying. All right, gentlemen. Unfortunately, I have to go. Do you guys want to stay on and keep? Actually, no, we can't, because I'm streaming it.
Yeah, you got the lead, so we have to say goodbye. It's fine.
Okay, so we'll have to cut it. We can continue this though in the Discord. There's always a place to talk about this. So if you want to continue talking about your own experiences with minimalism, maximalism, or your journey between one and the other, post them in the Discord. I think the ADSN channel would be the best. We've also got a challenge coming up. Curtis, is it on December 8th?
I didn't first. I'll put it in Discord. I think it's December 11th.
Okay, December 11th. That sounds about right to me, but I have no idea. Anyways, that's it. It's been a busy month for all of us, but yeah, we've got a new challenge with just take a field recording, and we provided one from one of our patron sample packs. But if you'd like, and we encourage you to go out with your phone or with a recorder and just record something and turn it into, preferably according to the rules, a rhythmic element, but we'll do whatever with it. Just get a field recording as a basis of your song, and then we'll have a listening party, and it'll be awesome. But with that, we will be back next week at 11 a.m. Pacific. And until then, it's been great hanging out with you all. And if you're watching this back or watching this on Spotify or Apple, if you dug the video, give it a like. It helps a ton. Or comment after the stream ends or on the Spotify, because that helps a ton. But we'd love to hear your thoughts either on the OPXY, which, like I said, does seem to be pretty divisive in views of it. You know, controversial for some, but awesome for others. And yeah, also, if you've grabbed that Dawsome, let us know. I'm getting that as soon as we end. Anyways, with that, we will call it a day. We'll see you next week.